Good morning, everybody. Hey, it's Sunday, August the 20th, 2017. Unbelievable. Just got done again. Sunday morning seems to be my mountain biking around the neighborhood thing. I did some wind sprints this morning on top of just riding, so trying to increase my calorie burn a little bit more. I wear a heart rate strap and a polar heart rate watch. That keeps track of my energy expenditure, and I burned about 700 calories a day, so that's good. Hopefully you guys can get up and do something to burn off some of those Saturday calories, as often many of us like to cheat a little bit on our diets on Saturday, whether with alcohol or food. So hopefully you can burn some of that off today. All right, today we're going to cover Standing Indian Shelter, which is right here at mile 86. That's where we ended off last time. And we're going to go to this hill right here just before Franklin, North Carolina. So just before Winding Stair Gap. So that is mile marker 86, Standing Indian Shelter. And then we went to about mile marker 107 to end the day off. So my first 20 plus day was day 7. And that was pretty huge for me, and I'll tell you why, hopefully in a little while. All right, so things we got to look forward to. So Standing Indian Shelter, it was a great shelter, but ultimately you were going to climb it wasn't too bad. I was fresh. I remember this. It was so foggy I could barely see the trail. And I think I say it in the video, but I actually walked out in the middle of the woods several times. That's how foggy it was. You could not see in front of you. This is the first time that you take an excursion over 5,000 feet and you go all the way up to 5,500. Then obviously you descend back down the beach gap. And today's walk, again, pretty tough. Starts off burning a lot of calories. And then you got a lot of ups and downs throughout the day. But the one that caught me off guard, and it's just amazing how it's right here at the corner of the page. So when I prepped and planned my hike that morning, I'm like, yeah, looks pretty good as long as I'm feeding myself and keep my energy up and drinking water, and there's plenty of water along the trail. I should be good, right? Not knowing that this summit, going the wrong way, summit was going to hit me, and it did. And this is Albert Mountain, so we'll talk about that. But if you can see right here, that is about as straight up as a climb as you're going to have until you get to the Kinsman, probably in the Whites. That joker was straight up. So anyway, at least it wasn't that tall, but it caught me off guard, and that was a mental crusher, to be honest with you. So you get to the top of Albert Mountain, and that's pretty cool because it's the 100-mile mark, and then descend back down, and you still got some more climbs. My plan was to go into Rock Gap Shelter this day. That would have been about 19 miles. Things didn't work out that way. We'll talk about that in the video. Kept going, just wanted to find somewhere to camp right down here. Couldn't find anywhere. Crossed a couple of roads. Ended up climbing up this hill right here that just kicked my butt mentally because I was done by the end of the day. And ended up camping right up here, which was spectacular, as you'll see. All right, y'all, that's about it. We'll save the rest for the video. This video is short today. It's only about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to take the rest of the time to do some questions and answers from questions people have asked over the last week or so. All right, let's switch over to the video. All right, y'all, here we go. Blossom in my lap, so she may start hitting the microphone.
Day 7, about 5:20 in the morning. Still at Standing Indian Shelter. Just wanted to comment real quick before I forget on the Z-Packs food bag, bear bag system. I didn't get the rock bag and the 550 quarter or the other line that they send with it, but I did get the bag. And y'all saw my hack if you watched my gear review. But I just employed it last night for the first time in the rain, and Cuban fiber is amazing. Poured all night, food is totally dry. Don't have an inner liner or anything, totally dry on the inside. And I have about 4.5, 5 days of food in there when I hung it. This is pretty heavy. This is the carabiner it comes with. It's bar tacked. I went ahead and added my own little piece of gutted 550 cord and another little carabiner. And then when I hang it, I hang my bare line carabiner through those two, and it just distributes the weight across evenly, man. No issues. Of course, it was one night, but very windy, very rainy night, so good reviews on that. All right, packing up, getting ready to go. It's still raining.
All right, so real quick on the Z-Packs bag. When you hear somebody, especially a military person, say 550 cord, they're talking about paracord. Most of you probably know that, but just so that term is, because I will say it throughout my entire through hike. So 550 cord is nothing but paracord, and when we say gutting it, we're just talking about cutting it and obviously taking all those fibers out of the inside of it. That's going to significantly reduce its capability to hold weight, but it's still just the gutted piece is still rated at either 80 or 100 pounds or something like that. So for what we did with a bag here, totally acceptable. For this is probably the most commonly used food bag that I saw on the trail. Many of you have this food bag. The common fault or flaw to this bag is that bar tacking that I showed earlier, and hanging it from one side. And that single bar tack is holding up 5 days of food. And if you're a big eater like me, 5 days of food can weigh a lot. So ultimately just tied another piece, like I said, put another carabiner on there to distribute the load. Did not ever have a problem with this hanging it. So just a little tip, and I will tell you the Velcro, as you've seen in a lot of other reviews, this Velcro eventually just quits holding. So when you have your food bag really stuffed, just know that if you don't get at least 1 or 2 rolls in there and it starts raining at night and this thing pops open a little bit, water is going to get in and the weight of this is going to increase significantly, and then putting more stress on those bar tacks. So you got to be able to make sure water isn't able to get in here. And I had problems with that later on. I had so much food with me that I'd have to keep some of it in my tent, man. That's a no-go. For me, it was just a risk worth taking. All right, moving on.
Outside, might delay for about 30 minutes, let it calm down a little bit, and then heading up standing Indian Mountain, going up to over 5,000 feet for the first time. All right, out. Comment on. It's still day 7. What are you eating for breakfast before you take off for the day? It's important. I see a lot of dudes just get up, make Pop-Tarts, and roll. For those who know a little bit about nutrition anyway, man, that's good for the short term, but you're not putting anything complex into your system in complex carbs. Man, it's good to get up and get some oatmeal in you, or if you research and do whatever works for you if you don't like oatmeal. But I'm gonna force myself every morning to get up and warm some up. I'd still eat 2 Pop-Tarts. I don't necessarily like the cheaper brands that you get at Walmart. But man, I'll eat the hell out of those too if I have to. I think they're Nature's Own, the kind I get. They're at least made with wheat flour. Whatever, man, they're still Pop-Tarts. But so I'll eat 2 of those to get my simple carbs, that quick fuel to burn for early in the hike, and then eat a big bowl of oatmeal with hopefully some fruit, some dried cranberries or some raisins in it for that sustained energy starting off. Man, when you just eat something simple like a quick Pop-Tart and start walking, you're going to run out of energy really quick. So if that is your plan, because you don't like to eat breakfast, you got to start throwing something else down pretty soon on your walk, snacking while you go, and hopefully getting some protein and some slower burning carbs in you. All right, out.
All right, so let me rewind this just a little bit. So off topic a little bit, but this is how I was separating my food inside my food bag. At first, I was making little quart-size Ziploc bags, and this would be my breakfast, my lunch, and my snacks for the day, and then my dinner would stay in the bag. I could pull this out and put it in an outside pocket and get to it easily enough. Later on, you just realize, that's a pain in the butt. You got to buy many Ziploc bags, and this is just increased weight. The more Ziploc bags you put in there, and up front, you're like, that ain't going to make a difference. Later on, man, every ounce weighs on your mind as you're climbing a hill, getting your butt kicked. You're like, man, what's in my pack that doesn't have to be in my pack? And one of the first items for me was to quit separating all my food like this. And that's why I bought a bigger fanny pack later on, so I can keep the snacks in there and not have to do this Ziploc crap. Back to the breakfast item. So breakfast, man, it's a huge, huge deal to me on the trail, and I think it should be for everybody. And a lot of people aren't breakfast people, and I get it. So some people just get up, pack up, and start walking and prefer to eat their breakfast meal on the go, and that's perfectly fine, man. I remember Kansas did that, and bunch of other people, actually. I would say probably over half the people on the trail do that, especially people who aren't coffee drinkers. For me, though, that's part of my morning ritual. I like to get up, and part of waking up is getting that coffee going and getting some food in my system. But you got to remember, and nutrition plays a factor out here, right? Like it isn't all just candy bars and unicorns out here, man. It's you got to give your body what it needs to sustain energy all day. And getting to lunchtime where you're going to stick some more, hopefully complex carbs in your system is tough. So you need to start off with some complex carbs in the morning. So your simple carbs, your sugar. Hey, first off, the statement that we should all be knowledgeable on is carbohydrates are the most efficient fuel and energy source for your body. The most efficient. The thing that your body can turn into fuel the fastest. So for breakfast, I ate 2 Pop-Tarts, have tons of sugar, 400 calories for a pack of Pop-Tarts. Man, that's my simple carbs. My body can turn that into sugar really quick. And they're made with enriched wheat, even though this is enriched wheat flour. Your body still processes it very fastly, and it has a high glycemic index, meaning that it's going to turn to sugar very rapidly. So that's good. That's good to get your body up and moving and give it some energy that it can burn in the interim or in the short term. However, you need some complex carbs like oatmeal or a whole grain bar or something in your stomach that's going to burn a little bit more slowly in your gut and release slower. A, it helps bring your glycemic index down a little bit, and then B, it just is sustained energy over time. So just keep that in mind. Figure out what you're going to eat, do a little bit of research, and start your day off with what your body needs, because it's just going to set it up for the rest of the day to be successful.
Down pretty soon on your walk. 100. The walk up wasn't that bad. I only had to stop one time. Good switchbacks, not too steep elevations. Good climb to start the day. After you get up on top of standing Indian Mountain, you walk ridge lines for a while. Obviously, can't see anything. I wish I could, because I bet it's beautiful. But when I first started today, it was so foggy that you couldn't see really but about a foot in front of your feet while you're walking, so it was hard to even stay on the trail. I found myself walking up into the woods a couple of times. It's good to have a headlight that has variable high beams, though it drains your battery. Man, I found if I kick it up to the high setting, it'd burn through it a little bit better. Only had to do it for a little while. The whole top of standing Indian Mountain and all of this ridge and a walk.
All right, so the takeaway there, man, there's days on the trail that it is extremely foggy. You're walking maybe at night if you like to start early like me, and Dan Haley still does. How he gets up, I don't know, man. Like in the middle of the summer, you're getting up at 3 o'clock to walk at night. But definitely in the wintertime, you can get up at 4 or whatever, and you're still walking an hour and a half or 2 hours in the dark. Having a headlamp that has variable levels of intensity, key. Having a headlamp that has a red lens capability for shelters, key. So don't haphazardly purchase headlights or headlamps. Make sure that you do a little research and understand what you're buying and the usefulness of what you're buying, and then how long those batteries will last, depending on what settings you have it on. Very critical. I used a Petzl, like I said. I got it issued at work. Don't even know what model it is, but it was fantastic.
Just talked to Goodies Grove's hostel in Franklin.
I keep calling it Goodies Grove. Here is Goddard's Grove in Franklin, and it was a pretty good
Stair Gap, which means I need to stay at Rock Gap Shelter tonight, which, if you remember when we were looking at the book this morning, that was the farthest shelter. So it's going to turn this into a 19-mile day in the rain. Nothing better. So as I was talking to the owner of the hostel, Goodies Grove again, I think's the name of it, he was saying, yeah, there's a big group that he just launched back this morning. He said there's a bunch of other people staying today, probably because of the rain. So I'll say this. Hey, look how cool this is. This is freaking amazing. This trail is just phenomenal. Yeah, so towns are going to make you weak. Now, there's going to be times where you just need to get the heck off the trail if you're having a bad experience, or you're mind's breaking down a little bit. Man, town might be the answer. But don't be scared of a little rain. If it's dangerous weather, then that's a different story. But if it's just rain, man, get out here and press north. There's going to be other towns, but you need to push north, because the longer you stay in those towns, the more that bad little devil's sneaking in, trying to convince you to, ooh, here's the overlook, let's go see what we can see. Try to convince you to, this is better. Staying in town is where you want to be. Go home. I bet that's beautiful when you see something. And the last thing is, chow in town, that crap will make you weak. Don't be out there for 2 or 3 days straight eating that town chow. You gotta get back out on the trail, eat that trail food. That's what's gonna make you hard. That's what's gonna make you put in them 20-mile days. It's that trail food. Being a little facetious, but it is true. The longer you stay in there, the weaker you're gonna get. Before I forget, little review on the ex officio pants. These things
All
are
right, so while I'm doing this review on the ex
if you go
officio
back to the
pants,
gear video,
which were, by the way,
I showed them
incredible.
if you're
Talk
getting
about the
somebody else for a
adaptation,
brand
because
new,
that whole last
and I
segment
think
about
I
the
answered it.
food and
So
staying in town is really
you're
nothing
still
more
debating
than
over
talking about
pants.
adaptation,
I
especially
would
your first
suggest at
week or
least
two
just
on the
checking them
trail.
out, see if they work for you.
Man,
I
yep,
hear that they
town's an
run for
option,
some
and
shorter
people,
people,
a
but
lot of
for me they
people
work great.
gravitate
I
back
think they
to
just
the
get a
comforts of society because they're not willing to
that
give them
zipper
up
on
fully.
the pants legs is
And I
awesome.
guess the point I'm trying to make here is
Uh,
kind of trying to be funny at the
I
same
bought
time.
some knee
That's some
braces
definitely
again,
Marine Corps
Hiawassee.
special operations humor right
Hopefully,
there. But
hopefully,
town chow will make you weak. It made me weak a lot of times. And a lot of times
you
when I
get the
left
heavier
town,
yet better, and not
I
having
had to
to
question in my mind, do I really want to
worry
go back
about
out there and do
so
this
much
again? And that was
swelling.
usually
And
when
they
I'd
seem to be
stayed in
working good. My
town
knees
for
are actually
multiple
getting
nights.
adjusted now, so
Um,
haven't
and it
had
was
to worry
always
that too
tough to get
much.
back out in the woods.
But I digress.
So when you're adapting on the
So you can
trail
unzip the bottom
or
of your
to the
pants
trail
legs,
up front, you got to be
get those
really
on,
careful
off,
about
adjust
how
that calf
much you're
sleeve
thinking
if you
about
need
town
to,
and wanting to stay in town and how many nights and dinners and
um,
breakfasts and all that you eat in
knee
town
braces if you
because
need to.
they will
Just
distract you and they are
different
the little
quality
devil, the little bad
pants
devil's
without that kind of bottom,
biggest
which can just
tool
be
to get
frustrating to
you
have to
to
stop.
do what it wants, which is to go home and live the comfortable life
Probably
again.
help pull my
Again, you
pants
didn't come
down
out to
just
the
to get to the
trail
knee braces.
for
So
nothing. You
something
came
to
out
think
for a
about.
reason, and stopping,
You're gonna have to make
your
adjustments
first
using
week or
the knee
two
braces
probably wasn't the reason why you came out.
with
So
something
just
on the
keep that in
toe.
mind.
Um, but yeah, good pants, ex officio. So just went over 100 miles, 0.5 back. Already done 12.9 today. It's 12:44. Still
All
didn't
right,
eat lunch. Trying
so
to
it
figure
was
out what to
raining
throw
this
for
day, but when I climbed
food for
Albert
lunch this
Mountain,
week.
I didn't
Gonna
film any of it.
rotate
I'm telling you, it was a
my lunch.
shock.
Rock
Uh,
salt. Yeah,
it was
so
definitely the steepest part of the trail by far climbing
don't
up.
climb over Albert Mountain. You can't feel me.
I was hungry. I should have ate
Albert's
lunch. I remember this like I'm still there.
right. That'd be
I
a tough one.
waited to eat lunch until
No
I
views
got to the fire
so far
tower
up
because
there, so
again, if
that's
you look at
sad.
the
But
book, man, and you
anyway,
don't look at the
moving on.
crease of that page, you
Hey,
just miss how steep that's going to
Zach,
be. So
go ahead and round out the
I
food.
robbed myself of lunch. I started climbing that. I
Um,
had no energy, no fuel to
where
burn,
I've walked today from
and that's a dangerous
anything,
situation. What you do not want to do, let me
simply
push
before I
pause.
stopped
What you
last
do
night.
not want to do is start your body on this calorie deficient scale or scenario to where it's having to turn your muscle into energy. That's very inefficient. Protein is not a very efficient energy source, even though it can be used as an energy source. What you want to do is keep those carbs coming in all day. There were multiple times in the first month that I've let myself run out of fuel and my body had to start converting other things into energy. And that's why I lost so much weight early on. So you just got to be better about it. I'm a hard dude. I like to push through things at times, but I was making some poor choices up front. And I know some of you are saying, well, how can you enjoy yourself if you're moving that fast? And to each their own, man. You just got to understand me. I like to move. I like to put in big miles every day because the feeling of accomplishment at the end of the day is just fantastic. It is what I live for. So to each of their own. I want to show something real quick. This is my camp
This
spot.
piece got burned alive. It doesn't really affect your hiking too much. It just sucks for the forest, but
Talking about the fires,
man, it's just
everything
part
was
of
burned
nature.
out.
So things will come back even stronger. Man, long story about today. Got to Deep Gap Shelter, wore out. That's almost 20 miles. And it was jam packed full, and then some from I would say week.
All right, so for you Z-Pack owners, this is a simple little hack, and I think I've shown it before, but it makes a huge difference. So your sidewalls here have little guidelines to pull out and give you a little bit more room in there. However, if you just pull them straight down, they really do nothing for you, to be honest with you. So just find a little stick, a little forked stick, and put it underneath the guy line, and I'm telling you, it gives you so much more head space in there. It's really amazing what a big difference it makes. So just a little tip on the Z-Packs Duplex. And
Campers, but
here I'm just talking about how I got the
usually
Rock
up
Gap
to the
Shelter, and
parking lot that's only
Rock
about
Gap
0.2
Shelter
away
is
from
right
the
by a
shelter.
road. Let me see. Yeah, in fact, it's only 0.1 or 2 to the road. And so when you get there on the weekend or a busy day in the summer, I would guess, people will park right down there at the gap and just walk up and camp there. And hey, man, that's to each their own. I'm happy when people come out and enjoy the woods. But just keep in mind, if you're just going to come and spend a night or two at a shelter, and you're only going point 0.1 or point 0.2 from the car, man, bring a tent and something to save the shelter for those who are hiking, whether they're on a section hike or a through hike or a multiple day weekend hike or something, and they put in big days. Man, let them have the shelter if they want, or if they want to go set up their tent, good for them. But at least if you can hump in and you're just going to stay for one night and you get to go back to your house and take a shower the next day and dry all your gear if it gets wet, that's so much better than forcing them into the situation where they have to, and then they have to hike for maybe another day or two with wet stuff and just miserable. So just keep it in mind. That's just etiquette. Take it or leave it. Use it or lose it.
And then
But this view is awesome right here. That view
just come
made
up there
my
and
day.
occupied the dang shelter.
You can
So I didn't
see
even
the road
stop,
right
man.
here.
Kept
This is the
going,
road going to Wine
thinking there'd be
Gap,
another good camping spot
Gap,
somewhere.
Franklin.
Started climbing another monster hill. I finally found this spot, and man, it's all burned out. It's all kind of muddy and nasty, but I don't care. It ain't even a perfect pitch. I'm kind of, my head's gonna be a little elevated, but man, when you got this view, it just doesn't matter. As soon as I got up here and saw this view, the rest of the world's good. All right, y'all. So in day 7, lessons learned. Really study the guidebook before you step off. It's raining this morning, so I kind of just like want to get on the road, get going. I knew where everything was, minus I didn't realize that climb up to Alberta Mountain was that steep. It took a lot out of me. I should have ate lunch before that. Good lesson learned, though. Sometimes you got to learn the hard way. All right, y'all. We will talk to you tomorrow.
All right, y'all. So what I don't want y'all to have to do, and what these videos exist for, is so you don't have to learn many of the same lessons that I learned the hard way. So I want to progress you guys who are going to start a through hike or section hikes this year, next year. I want to progress you to the point to where you can now build on top of the mistakes that I made and all the other through hikers that have vlogged or have commented or whatever. We're trying to lay that foundation so you can just keep building on top of it. And eventually, hopefully, we have enough knowledge base on YouTube and everywhere else, Facebook and everywhere else, to where man, people can just go out, understand what they're getting in through, understand what they're getting into, understand how to get through it, the most efficient means, and all of this will help bolster the biggest challenge on the trail, which is your mind. So if we can take care of all these little things, if I would have had eaten lunch before I hit that mountain on this day, on day 7, my whole day would have changed. I wouldn't have been angry at Rock Gap when the shelter was full with overnight campers, which really, man, really at the end of the day, who cares? They can do what they want. But the bottom line was I was mentally degraded because I didn't do what I was supposed to do that day. And that's what I want to prevent for everybody else. If you do things the right way, your hike is a totally different experience. And it's a good, enjoyable experience that you can be happy in the moment. All right, I'm going to switch to the camera. All right, y'all, we're going to do a quick, I think I chose 4 questions or comments to answer. And I kind of did it in this format. This is in PowerPoint, so I copied the question up here and then some bullet points that I want to talk about. So the first one's from Mr. Airborne Ranger 87. And man, hey, it's always good to hear from you. 87, man, he was commenting throughout my hike and really appreciated his following. And it really, really lifted my spirits. So, did you ever wear yourself out planning the unknown to resupply, where you were going to stay, how much it was going to cost? I'm a planner in my professional life, I'm guessing, as well as in my personal life. It seems to never stop. From the time the kids are growing up, everyone depended on me to plan everything. So now I just got off vacation with a wife from Alaska, and I'm asking myself about the next big dream. I don't think it's the factor of completing it. It's just the over planning of it all. I try to stay happy about the actual doing, but the planning is what takes away from the happiness. So it's 50-50 with me and the overall concept of the AT. Yeah, you're describing me and probably many other people out there watching this right now. So what I will say is, hell yes, I am the planner in this family and take it to extremes at times. Miss ER is the exact opposite, and I'm guessing your wife is probably very much opposite of you if I was a betting person. And we marry our opposites on purpose. Usually, we don't even know it. But anyway, so yes, I did wear myself out. I do in life in general. So my intent when I got out there was try moving away from that a little bit because I was seeing it as disruptive to me trying to find happiness and contentment in my life. I was thinking that, hey man, over planning is just taking away from that. So the trail teaches you many things, and what I found out and what it taught me was to turn it into a positive thing. And once I did that, the whole perspective changed. And then I started being able to positively look at how I can plan and not take away from the experience. So I would do a quick planning session in the morning. I would do some spot checks throughout the day to see, hey, am I meeting where I want it to be? And if not, not a big deal. Just readjust the plan a little bit. And then in the evenings, I would reflect on that plan and how good was it? What are the takeaways and how should it change what I plan on the next day? And that's it. And I saved the rest of my day, like diving into my head, into thoughts about the ego, whatever else. I saved it. I saved the energy, let's just say, because I came up with that plan on how to plan. Isn't that funny? Like, I have a problem with planning, so I had to plan how to plan. But I will tell you, that relieved a lot of energy that I could then spend towards something else. And that's important. And I'd also call Miss ER and she would spot check me and pull the reins back a little bit because I would hurt myself out there some days. And she was just like, hey, just go stay in a hotel. It ain't that big of a deal. You're making great time. And she'd be that reality check. So having somebody there to call 87 is going to be key, whether it's your wife or a buddy or somebody who can just look at you and call spade a spade and tell you that you're messed up and break through and hopefully and make yourself, not kill yourself, which is what I would try to do at times. Robert Baker, ER great videos. I've watched your originals twice. Now I'm making notes with the AWOL guide. I'm starting in spring or mid-Jan. Would you take micro spikes for a section from Georgia through Virginia? Ice Ager 73. Again, Ice Ager, man, always good to hear from you. I appreciate you following my entire journey, and always good to hear from you. So I would, and I already commented to him personally on YouTube about this, but this is bigger for the broader audience, everybody that's going to start earlier next year out of Springer, and I would take them. But I know I'm not like, I know as well as anybody it's a balancing act when you're starting out. You want to be as light as possible, and he's got his base weight down pretty good. I think he said he's about 20 with the micro spikes. A lot better than I was. I think that is a great base weight as long as you have everything that you need. But if you forget things like a micro spike or talk yourselves out of micro spikes, man, your hike could be over fast due to injury, whether that's a mechanical injury or whether you don't take enough clothing and get caught in a bad cold snap, and those environmental conditions take you down. Those are the things you have to prevent. And again, that's the balance act that you're playing with your mind and your gear. Now, I got to Irwin and I dumped my micro spikes. I just left them and kept going. Didn't even send them home. Didn't care. They were only about 19 bucks. I'm tired of carrying them. I was getting my butt kicked, by some of the climbs, so I left them. Got to the Smokies. Quickly realized that I should have had my micro spikes with me as I got on top of, I can't remember the name of the 6,000 foot peak up there that has the cabin, but it was snowy, icy. I fell probably 15 times that day. Had I had micro spikes, I probably wouldn't have fallen any that day. So you got to have micro spikes, in my opinion. How would I go about finding out which ones? I would go to Amazon, keep asking if other people have any preferences of what they used, comment on here. But what you're looking for is the balance between cost and weight. I would pay a little bit more for good ones as long as they're lighter. Because what you're going to do mentally is if you catch a warm snap, you're like, man, why am I carrying these freaking micro spikes? I'm not going to need them. And they're going to be the first thing you want to take out of your ruck, your backpack, and get rid of. I would just say you got to fight against that urge. And how long you keep them is up to you. But if I did it again, start at the same time in mid-February, I would send them home mid to late April. And that depends on where you're at, right? So mid to late April, I was already in Pennsylvania. Definitely didn't need them at the time up there, but you could catch a cold snap or a snowstorm then, and that's when those, like, you can't plan for freak things. I'm not carrying weight just in case I catch a freak snowstorm in early May. Then I'll just have to deal with that and maybe get off the trail for a day or two. But you're wanting to carry them through those times where there is a good chance that you're going to have some ice, and that's late winter, early spring. And then you got to get them back, depending on when you get up to Vermont and New Hampshire for sure. You got to get them back. I didn't get any more micro spikes until I crossed into New Hampshire. It's when I stayed on the Vermont New Hampshire line at that bed and breakfast, and that store was right next door, and they happened to have some which I absolutely loved. I've got rid of them since, I think, but ultimately, man, they were fabulous. And had I not had those in the whites, probably would not be a successful through hiker this year, because I still fell a bunch even with the micro spikes on. Man, that's how bad the conditions get. Tom Gibbs, on my 19 through attempt, no way in hell I can memorize all this info or carry all these notes. Needed an ER71 app to go with my gut hooks. Man, that's a great idea. Who doesn't? Who doesn't need an ER71 app? Thanks again for all you're doing and for answering my questions while you're on the trail. So I chose this comment because I think these videos can serve as an ER71 app, but bigger than that. People are commenting on here as well and can comment on here with their experience. So it turns into this video collage or video library that you can access at any point in your through hike. When you get to a town and you're about to go start, let's say after the Top of Georgia Hostel, you pull up these few videos, watch them when you can, and take away the lessons learned from them. So this is what I suggest, man. Use these videos as more of a general prep guide. Wave tops are what really you should take away from this, and that's really all I'm giving are wave tops. And man, if you can apply some of these bigger lessons, like the conversation with the little devil I mentioned later on, or how to reinforce your bear bag, your chow bag, so you don't have that thing break in the middle of the trail, and now you're wasting energy and time fixing it. Man, if you can fix all those bigger things before you start, then you have a lot more energy that you don't even know you have, but you do because you made all these things, you prepped them all, and now they're not breaking on you, or your mind isn't breaking down on you because you prepared ahead of time. So that's what videos like this can hopefully be used for, and I'll be interested to see as everybody preps and starts their through hikes next year if they'll be useful. I hope they are. And Sharon Lavassieur, I'm guessing I'm saying that correctly, but if not, let's just all chuckle a little bit, and then I'll apologize, Sharon. And again, another big follower, and I appreciate you sharing, just so you know it. I love seeing these names. I recognize everybody that's commented more than once or twice, man. Just know that I recognize your name, and it warms my heart to see every time you guys comment. She had a couple of questions, but the one I'm going to choose to answer here for this purpose is, did you wear the compression sleeves while hiking or simply for recovery? So you can do either. That's why I like the compression sleeves for my calves separate than my socks, um, because I like to hike in the compression sleeves. In the wintertime, man, it's extra warmth, which proved to be very valuable with those thin ex officio pants on. So I didn't have to wear long pants underneath, because those compression socks covered up a good half of my legs almost. But B, keeping that blood flowing in your calves all day is going to prevent a lot of those injuries that happen to people's lower extremities when they first start out on these big trails where they're doing these big ups and downs and carrying some weight on their back for long periods during the day. So I wore the compression sleeves around my calves. It just keeps those knots from forming, keeps blood moving, and is a game changer. And then at night, I would put on the booties. I would sometimes leave my compression sleeves on my calves a little bit longer, but the compression booties I would put on while I'm doing all my chores around camp and sitting in there eating and whatnot. About 2 hours at a minimum every night, I'd wear the sock booties. And again, just trying to mash up some of those knots and some of those sore areas and keep blood flowing through your foot. A lot of people think compression, well, that's going to restrict the blood flow. Not really. What it's doing is not letting those muscles swell up too much, keeping a lot of the knots out, or compressing some of those knots and mashing them up a little bit. That's increasing the flow through those muscles and joints. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, and I can't spell here. You do knit have to, so you do not have to wear them when you sleep. You can take them off, but you can, or, well, I guess what I'm saying here is you can take them off before you go to sleep or wear them. My booties, I would find if I fell asleep with them on, man, they would become uncomfortable, and I would eventually not like to wear them. All right, y'all, so that's it. So that's it for today. Hope everybody's having a good weekend, a good Sunday. Me and the boy are going up to Washington, D.C. on Wednesday to go tour the nation's capital. Might hang out with the Donald. But now we're looking forward to it. It's his last full week before school starts back. I know a lot of schools have been in for a couple of weeks, so we're going to go enjoy it. Weather should be pretty good towards the end of the week, and go eat some good food and see the nation's capital. Hope everybody has a good week, and we're going to film my dynamic warm-up and recovery video, hopefully today, if I get the boy to help me out. All right, y'all. Deuces.